Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of our podcast. I will be your host, Prodijee, also Zach Burrell, and joining me as co-hosts to this wonderful podcast, we have streamer extraordinaire, fellow PvP enthusiast, Danylboone. Say hello, sir.
Hey, what's up?
And then we also have YouTube extraordinaire, Locke, who puts out a lot of amazing content showing strategies and interesting things. He's already got Ildira content out, level 69, wrecking people's faces. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thanks.
So we decided that there was a gap in the market for content. No one's really doing podcasts I'm aware of. I think there's one, but I haven't actually listened to their episodes. I'm sorry. I would like to do that at some point. But we also, there's not a lot of PvP content in terms of people put out guild battles and Locke puts out some manual content, but there's not a lot of it. And a lot of the, say, news videos are just going over news and from a general player's perspective. But we want to give that other perspective of like, all three of us are focused on PvP. That's kind of our thing. I believe so. Am I right? I'm not wrong there. Yeah. So
A little bit.
we value things that are a little different than other people. So I think it'd be interesting to be able to give everybody in the community that perspective, especially if people are kind of nervous about getting into manual PvP. It's a little intimidating the first time, for sure. You're worried about people having maxed out UR cards or something and not knowing necessarily what skills to use or something. There's a lot to it. We want to give you that. So we also love to theorycraft. So beyond just talking about news and our perspectives there, or just, basic content stuff, we want to kind of go deep on maybe new mechanics or things to expect to see in manual. How maybe one vision card being released could completely change like a PvP meta, or like, well, what are we going to look for in this build with this character and how things are going to shift. All of that is essentially what we intend to bring to you. But for this first episode, we kind of want to give you sort of our backgrounds, so you know who we are, who you're listening to, what to expect from us personally, more than just as a group as on this podcast. So let's meet the crew. I'll start us off and talk about myself a little bit. My name is Zach Burrell. I am a TCG player primarily. I have a competitive background there, with the Final Fantasy TCG being my main one. I've gone to every Nationals except the first one because of Hurricane Irma, canceling my flight. But I also went to Worlds last year, so I'm top 12 in North America, and 32 in the world. Anything I do, whether it's a video game or TCGs or whatever, I want that competitive side of it. I can't play a lot of single player games these days. Skyrim's about as far as I get into that because no one gets away from Skyrim. But I need to have that sort of drive to compete against other players and see like how I'm doing compared to everyone else, and like get that. It's a little bit of an ego thing, of course, but yeah. So I got into War of the Visions because obviously I have a Final Fantasy background, playing the TCG. I watched my mom playing all the games as I grew up. I've never actually played most of the games myself, but I've seen all of them played. My mom was quite the gamer. Guitar Hero, MMOs, everything. And I guess I already talked about my motivations for PvP, but Daniel, how about you? What are your kind of, we'll start with like your gaming background in general, any personal information you don't have to give out, but if you'd like to, if your name is actually Daniel, if you've been fooling us this whole time.
Right.
How you got into War of the Visions, what your Final Fantasy background is, etc.
Right on, yeah. So yeah, as mentioned, my name is actually Daniel. I usually go by Dan. I go by Danylboone online actually because of my dad. I was named after the pioneer and American explorer Daniel Boone. He's my namesake, and whenever we went camping, like growing up, my dad would always call me Danil for I don't know whatever reason. Like Daniel wasn't, it was too long or something. Anyway, so it's something for me to remember him by, which I think is pretty cool. I study space science, physics, astronomy. Um, been an avid role player and LARPer. I'm into fencing and swordsmanship and stuff like that. We could probably figure more stuff out about our personal lives as things progress. But yeah, so going into what brought me into War of the Visions, like I'm sure most of us, like I've been a gamer most of my life, right? My first game actually was the original Final Fantasy on the NES, and I guess you could say I spent many the hour with my brother playing through different RPGs. Besides Final Fantasy, obviously, like I'm into Zelda and Metroid. But if it's an RPG, chances are I'll check it out at least. Favorite Final Fantasy, I'd say, would be 9. Not just
Man of
because of the
culture.
game. Yeah, not just because of the game itself, but like a lot of good memories involved at the time, you know.
Right.
Um, I got into War of the Visions because I had just, like, coincidentally just been finishing a playthrough of the original Tactics around like January, February, and like just by coincidence, I saw like the pre-registration for War of the Visions. So it was like a natural step forward for me, you know.
Yeah, I guess I kind of forgot that part of it. COVID is basically why I'm playing it, because I wasn't able to travel for TCG events, and I
Yeah.
wanted that sort of competitive edge, and all the people I knew. Like, my entire guild started with TCG players from Final Fantasy. Like, our guild leader is one of like the biggest like store, like online store owners. What about you, Locke?
Excuse me. Yeah, so my name is Locke. I often go by Haku or Haku Snow on online games and stuff, but keeping with Final Fantasy, I decided to stick with Locke. I have played Final Fantasy 3, where is it 3 or 6? It depends on which
Or
version.
six. Yeah, 6. Yeah.
Is it 6? Okay. Yeah, Final Fantasy 6. So compared to you guys, I'm actually quite an amateur at games and like TCG and things like that. I get bored very fast actually. So I played a lot of these like online games on my phone, and I usually get bored after a month, and then find something else to play. So this one I've been playing now for 6 months, and I'm just not bored yet. So that's a good thing.
That's honestly what I expected. I expected to kind of play it for a week and just, but
Exactly, right?
here we are.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's just so in depth. You can do so many things. It doesn't get stale. Like the new units that they release, there's like so many new strategies you can come up with. So that keeps me going. Uh, I mean, I've been playing games for a long time, but most of them were MMOs. When I was in like in high school and stuff. I played Lineage for a long time, Lineage 2. And
I've
then
heard good
after that,
things.
so yeah, it was a pretty like grueling game. It takes a lot of time to play, but it was fun. Um, since then, I mean, now I don't really play on the computer anymore because I don't have time. I just play on the phone on the go. And this game kind of makes sense because, I can farm while I'm doing something else, while I'm working or
Yup.
reading up on something. And then when I want to play, I can spend like an hour actually like doing manual PvP, which is what I kind of like. So this game makes sense, and it also lets me play for like 6 months and not have to dedicate actual time to it like an MMO, but still
Right.
like do well. So it ticks all the boxes for me, and it's still kind of fun, pretty exciting. So that's why I'm still playing it.
Yeah, I feel you on that. My problem with MMOs a lot of time is that time investment, and yeah, this game takes a lot of time, but the concept of zero time, where you're doing something else, so the time being spent on the game is not extra time you're really investing into it. Every once in a while, you might have to click like, "Ooh, start the multi again," or "Let's change missions and get this other farm." But it's a super good working person's game, I feel like.
Exactly, yeah. It's
But they
a
also know that, so you know.
yeah. I mean, it's a good game to be on the phone. Like I can't
Yeah.
imagine playing this game on like as an MMO, but
Mhm.
I think it works. I think it works. Whoever's it's based off of another game anyway, and which also has a pretty good following.
Are you talking about the Alchemist Code?
Yes,
Okay.
TSC. Yeah.
I've never played it, but I obviously have heard of it,
Mhm.
referenced because of this game's engine being so similar, I guess. But
Yeah.
sweet. Well, that is a nice look into all of us. But let's talk about let's dive a little deeper into sort of once we started playing and we got into it. Like, how long did it take us to figure out we liked the PvP? What was your reroll experience like? I know everyone kind of has a different story there with whether they did a lot of research before they started playing or they just kind of YOLO'd it and went with whatever they got. If you guys want to talk about that, we'll start. Daniel.
Oh, I figured you'd go first.
I knew you would.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. I think so covering the PvP side, I knew going in that it was going to be a big deal for me. Like Like, why else have like a multiplayer tactics game if not to play against other players, right? Like, playing like Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre or like pretty much any of those games, like having the chance to play with other people was like huge, right? Like, man, I wish I could have done that. So that was definitely a big part of the initial hype for me. Um, Coming in, I knew absolutely zero about like the JP side of things, so I had to play like a lot of catch up the first couple weeks of like figuring out how to play and how to play well and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
um, like I don't have like a reroll story. Like,
Oh, okay.
my first UR unit were King Elda and Ziza, and then like having just come from the first tactics, right? Like, Lancers were awesome, monks were awesome. I was like, dude, this is great. I love these units. So didn't
How
go
do
for
how do
any
you feel about
rerolls.
that now with those
Uh,
jobs?
well, well, so I was one of the first players I think that I saw at least that had like maxed out Ziza, by like
Yep.
mid-April or whatever. I don't know. I'm sure like Bigger Whales had some. I had her before then, but um, yeah. So like I think I didn't actually end up maxing out Elda until I don't know, like sometime this summer. But I had a lot of fun with Ziza. She definitely shaped my PvP experience. Those first like couple months.
Mm-hmm. How long did it
Uh,
take you to actually get into manual PvP? Like, do your first match battle and like see how this goes? Because I know
oh,
I avoided the duel arena because I thought it was like some scary thing at first. I'm like, I don't
um,
want to just like lose off the bat when I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, it's auto. Okay.
no, I it was first day for me.
Oh,
It was,
really? Just
yeah, I
boom,
was
right
just like,
in.
yeah. Uh, I can't remember my initial impressions or anything, but I knew like I was definitely hooked from the start. I do remember like a kind of a big influence on my account was like not starting with Medina, however
Okay.
you.
Yep.
It's sort of a big deal back then because she's always been like one of the best units to clear stages with, right? So I eventually picked her up like a month later or so. But yeah, that was a big deal at the time.
Right. Yeah. That's why I was curious to see if you knew like I should go for Medina or if you were like, not tier listing and being, I want the worst one. I want Mashri. Everyone says she's bad.
Oh God.
Or Eileen or whatever. What about you, Locke?
So I went for the reroll with Medina, as a lot of other people did. I think I spent about 2 hours trying to get her, and I eventually got her. And I mean, usually I don't really care about getting the best unit, but the game gives you a Medina, like it shows you, her and the damage it can do, and also you can, you can do missions with your friends, so Medina, and you see how much faster she'll clear everything. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm missing out not getting her, so I'm gonna reroll and get her. So
I want
that's
to
why I
be a
went.
good friend.
Exactly. So I ended up re-rolling for her and got her. And by chance, I actually got her, Ayaka, and Engelbert,
Very
all
close to what
within
I had.
Yeah, same
all
actually.
within
It's
like I think the first few days, 2 3 days. And I didn't re-roll for anyone else. I was happy with just a Medina because I didn't want to spend like days re-rolling.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I ended up actually not building Engelbert at all.
Wait. The guy who
Because
has double gunners didn't build Engelbert?
it's funny because the game gives me so many shards of Engelbert when I decided not to build Engelbert. I have 400 of the shards sitting just from summons because that's the game, that's the gacha, right?
yeah.
It took me until I think Whisper's banner to even pull Engelbert, period. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
I started with him, and he was definitely a big influence on my account.
Yeah, like what was it, 3 or 4? No, I guess it was a little longer than that. Was it?
Like he,
Maybe it was after Whisper, whatever that next banner was. Since I pulled Engelbert, and I'm like, oh, Wall's gonna be here in like 5 weeks. I'm like, I'll just not worry about him. I was doing his hard quest for a while. I'm like, nah, never mind.
yeah, he was my first level 99 unit, UR unit.
Sure. Now, when did you get? What's your story with like Frederica? Because I know that was kind of a big deal for you.
So I was not pulling for Federica, I was pulling for Shiva, and I did not get
Oh,
Shiva. Yeah, because yeah, I mean, like in a lot of games, I've often played dodge type of characters. So I said, oh, and I mean, I didn't follow, JP too much, but I kind of I read a lot on Reddit, and they're like, "Oh, you need the Shiva card if you're gonna build a dodge team." So I said, "Okay, let me try." And I believe it was Shiva. Shiva and Frederica were on the same banner when it
Hmm.
came out,
Yeah, it was
and
like
I got Frederica.
like the first week after it released. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I pulled on it. I tried very hard, and I only got Frederica. So I only had well, I mean, I had the three that I said, the three URs, Medina, Ayaka, and Engelbert. And then I'm like, well, I mean, I usually play range characters anyway, so let me just go with Frederica. I didn't know if she was good or bad. I just decided to
Hmm.
go with her, and I mean, ended up like building an entire strategy around her for live PvP.
Right. Right.
Um, but it was not my intention at all to build her. It just so happened. Same with the calculator. I was actually planning on skipping that because I was like, I don't have enough Visio for this.
Daniel, you and I both were like, I don't have Visio right now, but I'm gonna buy all these MR tickets. You got her on an MR ticket, and I had to. She's the only
Exactly,
UR I
that's
got
what-
that wasn't the pity one. I got 3 URs, 2 pities, and she was the one that was just randomly in there.
Let's talk about that a little bit later. So my experience with Frederica was like like totally I skipped her like on purpose, right? Um, I had heard about like the first tactics banner, and um, I wasn't really as committed to whaling until like a little bit later. So I was trying to play smart with like my lightning, like fragments and Alchrist and stuff like that. I was like, I'm not going to invest in like a lightning unit like right before Sid, right? And like I knew I was going to go for Sid. Um, that was one of the worst mistakes of my War of the Visions career so far. Like not like I could have built both of them, and not having Frederica for those months of like the huge gunner meta
Mhm.
like was like a big deal, like a huge struggle for me. And like that's like if I could go back and like change like one thing, I would have definitely went for Frederica first.
Mhm.
These would have been so much easier for me.
Talk about my sort of origin anyway, the beginning of it. My rerolls, I did do a lot of research. I actually started day 3, so I heard the game came out. I saw everybody on Facebook talking about it because they're all Final Fantasy TCG people, and of course everybody's playing it. Everyone's in quarantine, so I'm like, I've never played a gotcha game. It has the term gotcha in it. I know what that means. I'm not playing that. Day 2, I messaged one of the players that I knew, and I'm like, all right, sell me on the game, at least like trying it. Like, what and how bad is it really? Like, am I just gonna be completely irrelevant if I don't spend money? Blah blah blah. Like, I just want to play this for free, whatever. And just laughable now. Uh, and and they gave me, I talked to like 2 hours, like just going back and forth, like this and that. I'm being really like pedantic about it. I'm like, all right, well, what about this, like this detail and that detail. I'm like, I was very against it. Third day of the game release anyway, I was like, all right, I'll install it, I'll re-roll, whatever. I saw the tier lists. Like, why is this person up here, or why is this blue magic chick so good? I'm like, oh, she's a black mage, I love black mages. I'm like, I'll go for her, Medina. And then I didn't really look into Ayaka, but I knew she was up there as well, and I knew she was like the best like healer. And I'm like, I would love to have a healer on my team. That sounds great. So I started my first account. You get that like 10 times summon, like at the beginning, that gives you like Cactor was like guaranteed plus something else.
Mhm.
I can't remember what that was, but the very first like actual summon, Medina. I was like,
Man,
all right,
it's been
sick.
too long. I can't even remember that.
So first one, Medina. Second one, nothing. Third one, Ayaka. I'm like, all right, we're good. And then I got Rob at some point. So like my first team was Medina, Ayaka, Rob, Mariluk, and
Nice.
I think Phoebe, because I read that Phoebe was like really good. So like I had that was my 5, and then I dropped Rob after like 3 days because he didn't have ranged attacks. And Hien was only in space like 3 or whatever, and that's not far enough. So I had this really weird view of what I wanted. But yeah, and then I knew I wanted to try the PvP, but like I said, I was kind of scared at first because I thought, I'm like, if my win-loss ratio is really low, it's gonna look bad, and I don't like having bad records, so I'm gonna learn the game first. And that turns out Duel Arena doesn't keep track of your wins and losses, so I missed a couple weeks of medals and stuff and rewards. But yeah, and then I tried manual PvP for the first time, and I just after that first game, I was like, okay, I see what this is.
Hell
I
yeah.
get to use abilities I've never used before. Like, Medina's great. I love walking up and just boom on people for that first
I did the same
bit.
thing too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when I first started live PvP before level 61 bracket, yeah, it was just Medina. Whoever had the fastest Medina usually won.
Yep. And I think at the
Oh, God.
time, I don't think I really had a like fast Esper on purpose, but like she always went first. And I was like, sick. Oh, Shiva actually is why, I think. Because like you said, you pulled on Shiva's banner pretty hard for her. I just wanted like a magic Esper, and I was like, oh my god, Shiva. So the first time I actually spent money was, I'm like, all right, I've played this for like a week or so. I definitely know I'm gonna play it for a while. So I'm gonna spend the amount of money that's like buying a like new AAA game, which is like $60 or whatever. So I went, I'm like, all right, well, how much is Vizior? And I saw all the deals, and I'm like, oh, there's one for 80 that's a really good deal compared to the other ones. I'm like, obviously, I'm gonna buy the best value, so it's just like a DLC. So so I did that. I'm like, I knew after researching that like you're not supposed to like pull randomly. You're not supposed to just do pulls and go. But I'm like, I want to start off with a nice little roster here. Like I'm just gonna do all of these. What would that be? Be what, five summons for $80, something like that. 10 summons.
I think it's like 5.
Yeah, it's 5, and then I had a bunch from like story and stuff too, right? So I'm like, you know what? We're just gonna do it. And I just dumped it all on like rare summons or whatever it was. And then then Shiva I saw, I'm like, oh, I need her. Pulled it like once or twice, missed. It's actually Ramu's what I'm thinking of. Then Ramu came out shortly after. I'm like, oh, he's like the best magic Esper.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I actually had just bought the Fire Emblem game for the Switch because I wanted to play. I was looking for a tactics game, like some kind of like tactical whatever, and I played this first. So I still had it sealed. I returned it to Walmart, and then got my money back. I had something else that I was already selling. I had like $150. I'm like, all right, buy the rest of the 5K plus 5K packs. Do 10 shots for Ramu.
Whew, that's a lot.
I streamed it for my guild because everyone was like, do pulls, spend money. And I'm like, all right, guys, I'll do it. Let's stream it. So I did 10 pulls for Ramu, got him on the 9th pull and stopped. And from there, Medina was a monster for a while. It was awesome. But
Nice.
yeah, actually, that's one thing I meant to go with you guys. So where did you first break the seal on buying something for the game?
Ooh, that's tough.
I think it was Tankard for me. I just wanted to try summoning him.
I wanted to ask you about that too. I was hoping it was going to lead into that.
So I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, so the thing is, like I said, I was an amateur compared to you guys. I haven't really played many of the Final Fantasy games, but I read a lot actually. I like stories, and I see that Final Fantasy has nice stories. So I go to like the Wikipedia and read the stories, similar to comics. I mean, I don't have time to like read the actual comics, so I read like synopsis comics.
Sure.
Way more time when we were kids.
Exactly. So and Tankard looks like an interesting character. So I was like, oh, let me I'm like, I think I'm gonna play this game for a little bit. Let me try to get Tankard. And I tried, I tried pulling for him. I didn't get him obviously because you can't get him from that banner.
Wasn't like he Stola featured on it in like the 2 cards or something?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
so I got both the
banner.
vision cards, and I got no Stola. I got for free when I logged in.
Yeah, you get it
it.
for free,
Yeah.
but I think you can. Her picture I think was on the banner. Like, could you get like dupes of her or something? I know you could buy her in the shop for Gil, but
Yeah, I don't remember now actually.
Yeah, it's been a while.
maybe that's like a Mandela effect thing. Anyway.
And then I'm like, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not getting him, so I will give up. And then I realized I also saw that you can get him from the mod currency, but you needed like 20,000.
Yeah, it was like
coins,
15K,
and I'm like,
20K, something like
15.
that.
Yeah, it was 15.
15K, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm getting like 100 each run, so I'm not gonna get him. Okay, never mind. And then I do all the quests, and it already gives you like 20K, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So that's what you're supposed to do. So I was like, okay, well now I have Tancred, and then I mean, but each of his shards also cost double, right? And I spent like a lot of the Vizier on pulling that I didn't have enough left. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stick with LB4. So I left him at LB4, and I just decided to focus on other characters.
I think LB4 Thancred still, you got him to that TMR point, so he's at least like playable.
Yeah.
Just They did him so dirty not giving him an LB. It never clicked in my head that like it was rarity based for LBs because Mont had an LB. So like I was completely thrown for a loop. I'm like,
Yeah.
when do I unlock like what Mariluke's LB or whoever else? And they don't have one. So yeah, I didn't even click in my head until like 2 months into the game that Tankard didn't even have an LB. I was like, oh man. But that's impressive that you were able to pull a bunch on the banner and then still get a double costed unit to LB4. That's pretty insane.
That's where all my Vizier went at the time. Because what else did I do? Yeah, I think that was like he was the only one that I had LB4 Awaken 6 for a while. And then Frederica started to overtake him because I can actually keep working on her after the event.
Right.
Yeah, weird.
Now, did that leave any sort of like sour taste in your mouth for limited units, or did that not affect you at all like that?
Yeah, I didn't really want to work on limited units anymore. I mean, when they came around, like when Orlando and Ramza came around, I thought, okay, Orlando seems interesting. Maybe I'll try to get him. And I tried actually very hard, but I did not get. Well, I got him only on like the last day,
Oh
and
no.
without any Vizier left, because at that point I was just pulling for the card, the House of Beluv. Is it Beluv?
Sign of
I
House
have
Belv or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, I have
Bale.
trouble pronouncing some of the names.
That's fine. It's like French or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So so I got that card. I tried quite hard to pull for Orlando. I didn't get him, but I got the card. And then I just kept pulling to get the currency to level up the card, right? Because you couldn't buy the shards in the shop at the time. So the only way to level the card was either pull more and get a lucky dupe, or keep pulling and get the currency and buy the card using the currency. So that's what I was pulling for, and I got Orlando on like the last day with like no Vizier left. So I was like, so he's stuck at level 40 in my box right now, and I have no intention of working on him anymore.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, I went into Tactics 1, like I did research on both. I was like, yeah, I can be a meta whore and go Sid. Oh, that's boring. I want to get Ramza. He's cool. He's a support character. He's got some buffs, and I like more versatile sounding characters. So I did the just guaranteed buy him thing, because I'm like, I'm not messing around with this pulling business. I'm just gonna try to get him straight up, get his shards, and then I pulled on his banner for the card to get, because I'm like, oh, worst case I can cast the shards in. I got the card probably, I think it was really early, like first or second pull, and then but Sid I was like, I'm gonna skip. But then I kept seeing people playing with him, like, oh, I should probably have him. So I did like a pull a day, basically. Like I would get back up to 2K, and I already had like Ramza on his way, and I think by this time, this was what, a month and a half into the game, right?
Yeah.
So by this time, I spent a little more, of course, on like the collab stuff, and I was like, I want to max Ramza, and I think they were pretty generous with the free viz back then, anyway. Like they still are.
Yeah, when you're starting, yeah. And the 10 pulls a day, or not 10, yeah, 10 pulls a day with the limited stuff in there was great too.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, I never got anything from it, but
but it's great if you did.
It's just a hope,
Right. So I got him, I think so not the first like weekend, but the like second, like the Friday before like the second weekend of the event, and I got Sid on like the 7th pull for him or something. I was like, so I have a little less than 2 weeks, huh? And just went ham on those whimsy shops. It was ridiculous, and I ended up maxing both of them by the end of the event. But
nice.
That was oof. I was like, never again will I do 2 featured units at the same time, especially if they're limited.
Oof.
That didn't age well.
For me, I think skipping Ramza was the second like blunder or mistake or whatever with my account. I'd heard about how good like Orlando was, and so that was like a clear win for me. Obviously I'm a fan of Ramza from like the story and stuff, but like I didn't want to chase both, right? So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go for Orlando. Like he's obviously like OP or whatever. I didn't have any trouble liking him. Actually, this is a good place for me to mention. I think this was back when I had 3 accounts. For whatever reason, I was like, I've got more time. Looking back, it was like crazy. I did not have enough time, and I almost got burned out from the game. But got really lucky pulling Sid like in like the first couple pulls on like all 3 of my accounts. It's super easy for me to max him on all 3 too. I got like Scion of Belv like on all 3 accounts. It was a crazy time for me. Like looking, I was super lucky.
I actually
Um,
started an alt on the first day of Tactics 1. I'm like, I'm gonna play an alt, and then that's why I started streaming. So I did this thing where I had my main account and my alt account simultaneously playing at all times. I'd swap between them based on like which one had the interesting stuff going on.
yeah, exactly.
Something about alt accounts and being blessed, it is BS.
Yeah, it's weird.
You're carrying the same thing. Yeah.
So by the end of the tactics banner, I decided like 3 was too much, and so I gave them away to people that I found from like the War of the Visions like Reddit Discord. I was like, here you guys, like, I need these to go to a good home, you know.
like
so, they were
a
happy.
puppy.
Yeah, like they were almost as good as the account that I had started spending on, you know. So I'm sure they're still enjoying it. If they're still playing. But yeah, so I skipped Ramza on purpose, and I kind of started transitioning to like an evasion kind of team.
Mm-hmm.
I'd finally like I pulled Shiva like a month late, kind of like Medina. But so Ramza was always like a big opponent for me, alongside like Frederica, you know, with his LBs, obviously Ultima on guaranteed hit. So
And being light to have that advantage on your Ziza if you ever actually connect.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, Ramza's always been, he's always been like a big threat to me, and it'd have been nice to be able to grab both of them, you know. So cheers to actually having been able to do that, you know.
So I actually ended up getting Ramza while I was pulling for the vision card, but I decided not to go for him just because I didn't like how he looked. Like I didn't like this sprite they used. Which is like the stupidest reason ever, but
no,
it's what it is.
Dude, I have a friend. So I play another TCG that's not as like, I'm not gonna say it's not as well known, but it's less like of a mainstream thing. It's called UFS. Recently rebranded to Universes. Basically, it combines all like fighting games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, all the Soul Calibur. It takes in some anime titles now, like Yu Yu Hakusho has cards.
Okay.
And you basically pick a character and you build a deck around what that character can use. And then it simulates a fighting game. It's really fun. But I went to Las Vegas in February for their Worlds for that. And so they had 2 events. There's a singles, that's as it is, but there's also a team event where you team up with 2 people and then you like match up against another team of 3 and best of 3 across the table wins, etc. Anyway, one of my teammates was really good with a character. He was like, oh, this is like, he's crushing everybody. Refused to play it because he hated how the character looked. He's like, I will not play this card. I won't play ugly cards. Like, he made the most stupid decisions based on it. He ended up on a fine character anyway, but it was like, really, dude? Like, you know you can play this well, but that's your reasoning.
Yeah, that was my decision on Victoria, actually. I didn't like her.
Really? See, she's like in my top 2 favorite.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, she's really good, and I was just like, I don't like this character.
But aesthetically, I like just like her, like the hair
gotcha.
and stuff like that. I love her LB too. Like once I saw her LB, that like sold me. I was like, that's so sick.
Yeah, that's such a high charm chance.
Oh yeah, right. That's what we think about, right? Like a lot of people are like, oh, this waifu. We're like, oh man, that 67% charm.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I just wanted to make sure to add to what Locke was saying about like not liking the character, like the graphic, you know. For me, like I struggled to max out Sid. Like I only got like enough shards to max him out by like the second to last day of the event, because I just kept seeing Ramza shards in like all the shops, and like by the end I was just like, I'm so sick of Ramza's stupid face. Like it adds that level of stress, right, to seeing a unit that you're not trying to build.
Right. It's so weird now though with the Whimsy shops, the 3 times. Like I see, it's like what 2 or almost 3 full rows of featured things right now. It's ridiculous.
You have all of them, yeah.
It's like I don't have Delita, so I don't see him, but the rest of them all, I'm just. Yeah. So let's see. What would the next? So you said your regrets, Daniel. I think one of my, that's actually something I want to touch on. I'm glad you brought that up. I think the first thing I really regret is when Ziza was featured for the first time. I knew she was good. By then, I knew she was good. I knew her TMR was good. But I was like, I don't have her yet, and I really shouldn't buy shards for a character I don't have. And I let those 120 shards go. And
no. I know we've talked about this before.
by the next time, like by the time I pulled her, I was like, man, imagine if I had those 120 shards right now. I had the Visior, and I just didn't want to spend it on that. I was like, I'm gonna just do all this other stuff. Oh, and ever since then, I bought Whisper shards. I bought Whisper shards, and then I pulled 4. Like I'm like, I don't care. Like, oh my god.
I'm sure like we can, like anybody playing War of the Visions, like almost all of us can relate to a missing shard from a character that we thought we weren't going to build, and like regretting those shards, like missing them. Definitely done it more than once.
And my regret would probably be Kiton, because she's just so interesting. Like with her time mage sub job, you can do like a lot of interesting plays with her, right? I think she would be the best character to use transposition on because of her speed and her movement. You can have like 5 movement transposition. You can, go into an enemy. You can actually, like, I saw a guy who wrote this on Discord, not Discord, on Reddit, where he said that he targeted his own Kiton with like a 5 or something.
Yep.
Yeah, and then transposition into the enemy, and it fell off, and Kiton dodged it, right? So it doesn't. So it's just like a bomb that misses the target but hits everyone else around.
Yep.
So it was like a great play, and I'm like, it's gonna be hard to pull this off with like Miranda or Ayaka, because I mean they probably won't survive going into the middle of the enemies, and their movement is only 3. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah, Kiton would be great for all kinds of like combos like this. So it's too bad that I didn't build her, and now I just feel like it's too late to build her. I have her now. I have like I think 100 of her shards, and to get another 500 more shards, I'm like, maybe not.
She's one of my daily hard quests now. Yep.
Never too late. I mean, we're gonna be playing this game for quite some time, I think, unless we get burned out for whatever reason. That's definitely something that I try to manage my expectations about. Like I'm building Rob's. I'm building for Rob's TMR and Mashri's TMR right now, and I know it might take months, but I mean I'm going to be playing for next year, maybe the year after that. I mean anybody coming from Final Fantasy Pre-Veg Exvius, which has been out for like 4 years now, I feel like definitely has an easier time managing that kind of expectation. So I think if you're interested in it, I think don't hold yourself back from building it, even if it does take months.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I think it's like I'm trying to manage my Visior, because I think you can build anyone you want now, because when somebody's featured, you'll get the 3 shards daily from each Vimsy, right? So I don't think it's a limitation of, like I think I could build her pretty easily whenever she's next featured. I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, I have pretty good support characters. It's too bad that I won't be able to use that one, combo with transposition.
Yeah.
But I could do maybe like 70% of what I would do, like things that I would do with her with like Ayaka or Miranda, right? So I'm like, and a lot of interesting characters are coming out as well. So how do I manage my Visior to, to do what I want to do, right? And so that's why I decided. That's also the reason why I decided not to get Orlando after all, because now I could have gotten him with the 3 shards a day. Sorry, 3 shards per Vimsy. It's pretty easy to get anyone really during the featured time, but I just decided not to, because I'm like, I don't really need like a slash DPS anymore.
Yeah.
He is really good. Like he's one of the top characters, but he does damage, and that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there are a lot of like other characters that do like so much more, like Victoria, for example, right? She's just like, if I had to pick now, like Victoria or Orlando, I'd probably just choose Victoria. So I'm just trying to manage it that way, and that's why I decided. Like, Kiton is interesting, like I regret not getting her at the time, but like if she was released today, I probably would not go for her.
Yeah. I was definitely referring to like hard quests, like saving your Visior, but still being able to build characters,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first thing I do every day is hard quests to make sure that I have the Visior. I'm like, let me get these guaranteed things out of the way if I want to do like
that's
a
the first thing I do as well. to make sure I don't miss any of them. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Now, aside, how often do you guys accidentally re-embark whenever you reset a
Oh
hard
god,
quest?
that still happens
Happens more than you want to admit, right?
too often.
And then you have a team of like all level ones because you're just trying to get XP or something. And then it's like, well, how am I gonna do this mission?
So before we get too far away from like kind of the initial state of the game, I did want to talk about like the PvP like starting out. Like I'm sure like like the first month or so, I'm sure you guys remember like how it was all about who could go first and who could get that initial one shot, right? So like
Secret Orders, man. I became very good friends with Secret Orders.
oh yeah, so I don't know, like we saw a lot of Sterns, kind of on the right side of the initial like default positioning. Stern going first, getting off that initial shuriken, just like being able to just like move forward one space and just like throw it and like one shot like a Medina or like like these characters haven't been built. We don't have vision cards or Esper
Shuriken
resonance.
crits were obnoxious. They were
Yeah,
my
so
bane.
like that to me was like an interesting kind of dynamic to PvP back in the day, Um, interesting and maybe, like annoying and maybe it kind of pushed people away from PvP. Whereas maybe they'd have more of a habit of going through it, if they didn't like get one shot. Um, but so what was your guys' experience with that like early PvP of just being able to kill people, kill units like one hit?
I played
At the
Medina.
time, I didn't. Sorry, you wanna go ahead?
No, I was just saying, I just had that comment. Sorry, I just say stuff.
Yeah, at the time, like one-shotting everything, I thought it was kind of boring. So I
Right?
didn't. I was like, yeah, this is okay. I'll do it like 5 times a day or whatever, just to get my medals. But I didn't really, spend too much time on it, because I was just like, this is just like whoever has the faster unit will win most of the time. It doesn't seem very interesting.
Yeah.
So, I kept doing that, and I got up to rank 61, and all of a sudden I started losing like every match, right? Because suddenly I was facing like all these whales, and I was like, okay, I have like a level 79 Frederica, level 60, 64 Medina, and 89 Tankard, and I'm fighting like 89, 89, 99 something. And I'm just losing, and I'm like, yeah, this is not working out well. But I liked it because now I'm like, okay, let me see if I can actually somehow win with this, right? I'm like, I can't go back anyway. I'm stuck at
Hmm.
this rank. So what here? And that's how I came up with that Frederica strategy, because I was like, everyone is focusing on damage, and there's no way I can out damage these guys
I
that
remember
are
that.
spending like a lot of money. So I was like, since everyone is is gearing on damage and not really looking at uh, agility, I'm like, maybe that can be something that I focus on. So I started using initial placement every match. I always put Frederica in the center, and I would just do like a hit and run with her. And the other two units that I used with her was Tancred and Mont, because they were both kind of durable. Medina no longer worked past 61 because, I mean, even if I tried to get a hit with her, she probably did not have enough juice to kill uh, any of these Wales characters.
Hmm.
And most of the time, she would just get killed before she does anything.
Yeah.
Because I
That's
could.
definitely that's the point I was going for. Is like you have to respond to that kind of meta, right?
Mhm.
So that's definitely where I got started to get in the habit of that initial placement, right? So like even back then, I think that was my first impression of you was another like smart player who was like adapting to this circumstance, right? So I was really impressed with your strategy, because I had started doing the same thing.
Mhm.
Um, and this was kind of like around the same time as like the Golden Blade events and stuff, where like you could really start
Mhm.
like Stern kind of got out of control, even at like level 74 or 79 or whatever. Um, but like this is around the time that I was growing more comfortable with Ziza and using her thief sub job for like charming and reducing the accuracy and stuff like that, which giving me like a month or two of like daily practice or whatever with Ziza was definitely what led up to like that first tournament
Mm-hmm.
of doing well with her, you know.
You and Snacko in the finals.
Yeah. And that was such good times.
They're still good times.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Let's not muddy that up. Yeah, I think so. I had the Medina experience, where she was kind of my main person alongside Sid, because I think I didn't really do a whole lot until after Tactics. So my team was kind of like 99 Sid, either 79 or 89 Medina, and then 79, 89 Ayaka. Like that was like my kind of crew for a while. And it worked well. I mean, sometimes I'd go first and plume people. Sometimes I'd crush armor. I didn't do initial placement initially, because I didn't understand all the affinity mechanics, but I did switch my positions based on, oh, I see a lot of Stearns today in slot 1. My Sid will one-shot him or something like that. So I started playing that kind of metagame, but like it was very simplistic. It took a long time for me to do like the triangle, like in the center was kind of the popular thing for a while, where you just have your unit in front of that first pillar and then to the two sides. And then I started putting Sid there with secret orders and having my other 2 units just support him. So he would just walk up turn 1, kill one of your guys. If he can't kill one of your guys, he backs up and uses illusion or bolt barrage or something, and then go from there. And that was kind of like my gambit. But yeah, I didn't get like really deep into it until probably close to the first tournament, trying to really understand my units and kind of what they can do and what, like, I also don't think I had that many max characters until around then. Cause we had, I don't remember if the tournament happened before or after. I think it was after the refeature of Medina and Ayaka. I think it was simultaneously, right? Weren't they featured at the same time, like right after Tactics 1?
That does sound about right.
Because I remember I maxed out the Tactics characters, and then like the next week, Ayaka and Medina, I had them both at 89. I'm like, oh man, I have to finish them now. Like they're featured. Like what am I gonna? So that was another one that open up the wallet a little bit, refresh myself, and then I just bought all the shards for them, finished both of them, and then that was kind of when I really got into it, because I was like, all right, I feel like I'm in it. Because like I said, when I first started, I was like, I didn't want to play poorly because I didn't have the tools available, and I had that kind of fear for a while. Now, of course, I'll run SRs into people's URs and be like, "What's up?" But but I did not have that confidence at first. So it's interesting to hear that you were like deep in it, because I was like super
right
standoff.
So it's funny.
And I hated Frederica.
Yeah, not having Frederica, like this is right in the middle of that too. So, it's funny that we're talking about the tournament. Like for anybody that's not familiar, with longtime Twitch, he's a great Twitch streamer, obviously, and he created the tournament scene, the War of the Visions PvP circuit,
Mm-hmm.
and the first tournament was called the Lucia Cup. To come out, it came out at the same time that Lucia came out, um, and it's interesting because like I was thinking about running my own tournaments, like around the same time, but I didn't want to kind of like clash, like run 2 tournaments at the same time, right? So like I kind of threw in behind him, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna participate in this first one, and then like ever since then, it's just kind of been like
When's the next tournament?
yeah, exactly. So I think he's been doing really well with that. So, and if he's watching right now, just want to say thanks. Thanks for organizing those.
I think the rule sets are really interesting. Like I really like it, and it also gets me to think outside the box.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest part of why it's been as successful. Like I think if people just got burnt out, like say 2 tournaments in a row of just like Zizabel's blitzing,
Mm-hmm.
like it would have gotten really boring. But having the foresight to kind of balance those things out to make it more accessible, like now people at least trust the circuit, so to speak. So even if like there's a rule set that's not like ideal for them, like now we get to use bells in this next one. Like people still might join even without bells because they're like, oh well, there's other things that I can do to balance this out. I have more experience now. I'm more comfortable. I think it's definitely it's been pretty well run. It's funny you say something about the tournaments though, because I think we've also talked about this before. Where
Yeah.
I also was considering doing tournaments like for my stream and stuff, and like hosting, and I'm like, I know how to do brackets, and I know how to do Swiss tournaments and all this, and blah blah, blah, and it'll be free for a while, but and then yeah, he dropped it like he put up like a Reddit post or something, or on Discord somewhere, and oh no, it is. I joined his stream for the first time, and then he was playing the video advertising it. I was like,
Nice.
someone beat me to it, damn it. So I actually messaged him about it, and I gave him like all the rule sets that I had thought of, and like here's things I think could be cool to do, and blah blah blah, and then here we are.
Yeah, isn't it weird that like we were all thinking of it around like the same time, you know? That's still the coincidence behind that. It just still kind of blows my mind, you know?
Yeah, like if you look at the date of my Google Doc compared to the date when he put that video out, it's like a day apart. Like when I started writing out all these rule sets and stuff, it's crazy.
Yeah. Then there was like I think it was like the week before when like he and I were talking about it. Because like if we had never like talked about it or whatever, like you know, it's weird to think of how things could be different, you know.
Right.
So like shout out to the whole like Twitch community behind War of the Visions, by the way. Like I wouldn't be streaming if it wasn't for longtime Twitch and Dr. Diggs, and actually one of my former guildies is
Karn, right?
gamer dad actually is somebody from the community that I came from. He and Ragnazukin, these are like other Twitch streamers. They do different games. They are the ones that kind of introduced me to like the like being a part of Twitch and eventually like starting to stream on my own. I'm kind of curious, like if you guys have any background, like what was your background with joining Twitch?
So for me, I've streamed on and off a lot in the past like 3 years. I was playing a game called Minion Masters for a while. Still a fantastic game, it's just not the biggest. But they had like stream integration, so it was nice. Like people could watch and get like drops in their game by watching you. That was another tactical PvP only game that was you have like a deck of 10 cards that summon units. If you ever play Clash of Clans, it's very similar, just way more polished. So you basically summon units with cards and they walk across the field and do whatever their abilities are, and you just try to beat your opponent. Really fun. 7-minute games tops. So it was a nice like game after game after game every time. So I streamed that for a while. I streamed Magic Online for a bit. I played Moto, various formats there. I've streamed playing TCGs like IRL. I streamed Skyrim before. So like I've done a little bit here and there, but I was never consistent with it. Never had a schedule. It was just kind of like when I felt like it. I wasn't trying to do anything with it. So doing a schedule now it's been interesting. And like the podcast is also something that I had like set time, like every weekend was TCG stuff. So like that was locked out. So I had to find something to do during the week or some time rather to do like a podcast. So I didn't stream as much because I didn't have as much time to devote to things that weren't the podcast, editing the podcast, or playing TCGs on weekends and or traveling. So yeah, kind of with War of the Visions though, after I got into it, I'm like, I could stream this. Like no one's really doing PvP. That's what I plan on doing. And then, of course, again, at the same time, a bunch of us were all interested in doing it and like started putting stuff out.
So for me, somebody else actually invited me to that tournament. Tanch, I think, invited me.
Nice.
Yeah, and he actually invited me to a different tournament first, and I wanted to participate, but the guy that was hosting it was moving or something.
Oh yeah. I remember that. That was actually the first tournament finals that I casted, like on stream.
Oh
so
really?
Like, I'm always gonna think of like iRacy and Tanch, who were the finalists, as like the like I don't know. It's just kind of a nostalgic thing for me, even though like I don't really know them.
Where'd it come from? That's
the guild is Northern Sky, right?
Yeah, Northern Sky.
Yeah.
That was the host.
Never heard
So
of that one.
I joined too late, so I was planning to go for the next one, but then he had to move or something, so it never got. He didn't host another tournament, and then I joined this one, so I started just playing for this.
Yeah, I'm still kind of keeping an eye out for whenever they are interested in hosting more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hear there's like some guilds that host tournaments here and there, and I've told people like, hey, let me know when about.
Same.
Never gotten told about them.
Yeah, so definitely, like I think we all have an interest in like in boosting that kind of signal, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure, but of course, maybe they're like all these guys, play a lot, and like they're not gonna like I guess at the time like we had talked about like rule sets, so like maybe people were just like, oh, we're not gonna do rule sets, we're just gonna do whatever we're gonna do. I know some were like inter guild only, or I don't know. I'm just gonna take it as they didn't want me, to beat everybody. No, I have no idea. But I would love to find other side ones to do. Like if I could have a turn, like a match a day, whoo, baby. Like just besides this one.
But yeah, like moving forward, like maybe hopefully people get more comfortable with like organizing that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Like I think long time being like the primary one is good. I just would like maybe like when long time doesn't have one, someone else can step up and we can kind of have alternating for people who want to always have that grind and things to do every day, that because we need more of that, right? More daily grind and
at least the spirit of competition,
Yeah, right. But yeah, so that has been, I think, a productive first episode. We actually went longer than I expected on those topics, so that's excellent. So sometimes we'll talk about news and things, but a lot of times I know you guys get that content from other content creators on YouTube and such, so we don't want to be too repetitive. We'll occasionally give our perspectives on news from, what do we like for PvP? Like, if we had, I don't want this to go on forever. We could talk about Ildira, I'm sure, for like an hour. But I think we'll leave that to next week, because that's actually going to lead into next week's topic as well. Which is, I think we're gonna call it a day in the life. So we're gonna talk about kind of the daily grind and like how it may differ between what one player may do and what another player may do, based on either spending levels or based on focus on PvP, PvE, raiding, whatever it is. But yeah, for this episode, I think that concludes that. Any final thoughts you guys want to throw out there before the end of it?
Yeah, I think I wasn't really sure how much I was gonna try to focus on PvP, but like obviously we have more to come, right? So I definitely I like to getting to know you guys a little bit better, and like the state of your account and everything that we've talked about today. I obviously like tune in next time for more PvP content as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, today was fun.
Just a final thought, I guess, for me is like you were saying that you kind of you didn't want to jump into PvP right away.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people should. I mean,
for sure.
I think the
Yeah.
best time to jump into PvP is when you're under leveled characters, because for example, if you have Medina at your max level at doing the max possible damage, the only way you'll play her is to first turn and go in Cosmoplume, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you start with her at level 79 and you're fighting level 99 characters all the time, that's not going to work, because most of the time you will either not do enough damage or you won't go first. So you have to think outside the box. So the reason I'm saying is, you should jump in as soon as possible, is because you think of more strategies, how you can use characters better. So and that's what I've been doing. For most of my characters, I never start playing a character at 99 in live PvP. I always start usually 79, 89. The calculator was an exception at 69, but I mean,
because math.
Just it's fun math. Just jump into it. What's the worst that can happen? You lose, you get better, right?
Yeah, there's no negative. I thought there was going to be like a win-loss system. I'm like, I don't want to start off with a loss.
Yeah.
I think
we get a little bit too carried away with like win streaks and medals and stuff, and lose sight of the, I don't know, spirit behind it.
The process, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I always hate the phrase like you learn more from a loss than you do from a win, but it is true. Sometimes I get, sometimes you get that blinded rage. You're just like, I know why I lost, but I'm just like, also bullshit or something. And it's hard to like really focus in and then remember that the next time, which is the important part.
But, improve.
Yes, improve. But no, I think I like that as kind of like the leaving remark. Like, just do it. Nike that shit. just get in there, do the PvP. Yeah, just do it. But thank you, anybody or everybody who tuned in. Thank you, Locke, and thank you, Dana, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.